The event coordinator called me 2 days before my daughter's gala. She whispered, "Mr. Whitlow, I probably shouldn't say this, but the keynote speaker asked for you by name on the guest list." He said, "Don't tell your daughter he asked." I stood in my kitchen holding the phone, confused. What happened at that gala is why I'm telling you this story. Welcome back to The Forgotten Parent. Grab your coffee. Get comfortable. Remember this, the people in these stories had every chance to do right by the ones who raised them. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment. Be sure to subscribe. You're going to want to stay till the end. My name is Roland Whitlow. I'm 66. I taught high school shop class in Dayton, Ohio for 32 years. I retired 4 years ago. I still keep a workbench in my garage, mostly out of habit. I drive a 2007 Chevy Silverado with sawdust permanently ground into the floor mats. People see me in my work jacket at the hardware store and think, nice old shop teacher, probably doesn't know much beyond a table saw. They're not entirely wrong. They're also missing most of the picture. My daughter Vanessa is a partner at a marketing firm downtown. She's sharp, ambitious, image-conscious in a way that sometimes worries me. She's hosting a charity gala this year. Her firm's biggest client event of the season, black tie, 500 guests, a keynote speaker flown in from the West Coast. She asked me 2 months ago whether I'd mind sitting this one out. She said it gently. She said the room would be a certain kind of crowd. I understood what she meant, even though she never said it plainly. She was embarrassed of her shop teacher father in a room full of executives. I told her I understood. I did not tell her how much it stung. A father learns, over the years, which wounds to show and which to carry quietly. 22 years ago, I had a student named Marcus Deng, 16 years old, quiet, angry, failing most of his classes, living with an aunt because his own parents couldn't manage him. He showed up to my shop class already halfway checked out of school entirely. Something in him, though, lit up around tools, around building things that actually worked when you were done. I kept him after class most days, not because the school asked me to, but because nobody else was. I taught him more than woodworking over those 2 years. I taught him how to show up for something even when nobody's watching. He graduated, barely, and then disappeared into his own life the way students often do. I never expected to hear from him again. That's usually how it goes. 14 years later, I got a letter. Handwritten, 3 pages, from a man who introduced himself as the founder of a robotics company I'd vaguely heard of on the news. He said he'd built his first working prototype on my old shop bench, after hours, the fall of his junior year. He said nobody else in his life had ever just let him build something without judging whether it was worth building. I wrote him back. We exchanged letters twice a year after that, quietly, for 8 years. He never once asked to meet in person. I think he liked keeping that part of his story simple, untouched by cameras or press. Vanessa's gala, it turned out, had booked exactly that man as its keynote speaker. Marcus Deng, now CEO of a company worth more money than I could picture, invited to speak about innovation and second chances to a room of 500 well-dressed strangers. Vanessa had no idea I had any connection to him at all. She'd never asked much about my old teaching career beyond the basics. The event coordinator's call came 2 days before the gala. She said Marcus had specifically requested I be seated, by name, at the guest list, and asked her not to mention it to my daughter. I told her I'd think about it. I sat with that decision a long while. Part of me wanted to quietly decline, the way I'd quietly declined most spotlights my whole life. Another part of me, the part that remembered exactly how gentle Vanessa's voice had sounded asking me to sit this one out, decided it was time to simply show up and let whatever happened happen. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you, genuinely. I bought a plain gray suit, the first one I'd owned in 15 years, and I showed up to the gala that Saturday night. Vanessa spotted me near the entrance, and I watched her face do something complicated, embarrassment and confusion tangled together. She walked over quickly and said, "Quietly, Dad. I told you this wasn't really your crowd." I told her I'd just come to see the speaker. She seemed to accept that, relieved almost, and steered me toward a small table near the back, close to the kitchen doors. I sat there through dinner, through the silent auction announcements, through polite conversation with strangers who had no idea who I was and no particular interest in finding out. That was fine by me. I'd spent 32 years comfortable in rooms where nobody noticed me until they needed something built. Then Marcus Deng walked up to the podium. He gave maybe 10 minutes of prepared remarks about innovation, about second chances, about the danger of writing off kids who don't fit the mold early. Then he paused, looked out over the room, and said, "I want to do something I didn't put on the program." He asked if a man named Roland Whitlow was in the room tonight. I want you to picture Vanessa's face in that exact moment. She turned around from her table near the front, searching the room, and her eyes landed on me at the small table by the kitchen doors, and something in her expression cracked open. I stood up slowly. Marcus asked me to come to the front. I walked the length of that ballroom in my one plain gray suit while 500 strangers watched, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time, which was simply being seen for the whole of what I'd built, not the small visible piece of it. Marcus told the room the story himself, better than I could have. The shop bench after hours. The prototype nobody else believed was worth building. 2 years of a teacher choosing to stay late for a kid nobody else stayed late for. He said, "This man taught me that showing up quietly, consistently, without needing credit, is the actual definition of building something that lasts." Everything I've built since started on his workbench. Then, in front of the entire room, he shook my hand and said, "Thank you, Mr. Whitlow." The way a 16-year-old might have said it, if he'd had the words for it back then. Here's the quotable part, the line Marcus said that made the whole room go still. He looked at Vanessa's table directly and said, "The quietest people in the room are usually the ones who built the loudest things in someone else's life." I did not need Vanessa to apologize in front of 500 people. I would not have wanted that. Honestly, what I needed happened later, in her car, driving me home, when she finally said, quietly, "I didn't know any of that, Dad. I'm sorry I asked you to sit this one out." I told her the truth. I told her I'd been sitting things out my whole career, and that I'd gotten comfortable with it, maybe too comfortable, and that some of that was on me, too, not just on her. This wasn't a story that needed hard punishment. Vanessa never did anything cruel, just something small and thoughtless. The kind of quiet shame a lot of image-conscious adult children carry about parents who don't fit the room they've built for themselves. The justice here is simpler, and I think, more useful than punishment. It's a daughter finally asking real questions about her father's life instead of managing how visible he gets to be in hers. Vanessa calls more now and asks better questions. She had me back to her firm's holiday party in December, seated at the main table this time, no small table by the kitchen doors. Marcus and I still write twice a year, same as always. Though he did finally visit my garage workshop once, this spring, just to see the old bench again. He said it looked exactly the same. I told him some things are better left exactly the same. I still keep that workbench in my garage. I still wear the gray suit sometimes now, on Sundays, just because it fits better than I expected it to. People in Dayton still see an old shop teacher at the hardware store. They're still not entirely wrong about that. They're just missing a little less of the picture than they used to. If you like this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being part of this family.